My name is Dr. Matthew Hale. I'm 48 years old. For over 2 decades, I worked as a trauma surgeon in one of the busiest hospitals in Chicago. My life was built on facts, lab results, and the cold logic of medicine. I wasn't an atheist exactly, but I treated faith like a child's crutch, useful for comfort, not for truth. If I couldn't see it under a microscope, I didn't trust it. On the outside, I had the perfect life. A corner office, a polished career, a wife who still smiled at me after 20 years, and 2 kids, Emily, 16, and Jacob, 13. But inside, I was hollow. I spent more time with strangers on operating tables than with my own family at the dinner table. I ignored the quiet tug in my soul that whispered, "This isn't all there is." I thought I had decades left to figure that out. That day in February 2025 started like any other. My morning coffee, my drive through slushy streets, my white coat hanging crisp on my office door. But in the middle of a routine consult, my vision blurred. It was like the room shifted sideways. A crushing pressure clamped around my chest. I knew the signs. I'd seen it in others 100 times. Heart attack. My mind screamed instructions I'd given so many times: call a code, start compressions, get the crash cart. But my mouth wouldn't move. I collapsed on the cold linoleum. I could hear voices shouting my name. "Matt, stay with us!" The chaotic shuffle of shoes, the squeal of a gurney wheel. A nurse's perfume, lilac and disinfectant, cut through the metallic taste in my mouth. My vision tunneled. Emily's face flashed in my mind, then Jacob's. Regret punched me harder than the pain. All the missed soccer games, the birthdays I worked through, the way my wife had looked at me last week when I brushed past her hug. The room spun, the sound of my own heartbeat in my ears slowed, then stopped. Silence. Total, impossible silence. I expected darkness, nothingness. Instead, I felt weightless. I could see the team working on me, my own body, pale and still, eyes half open. I saw the clock on the wall read 2:16 p.m. I heard my colleague mutter, "We're losing him," her voice cracking. And then, a light. Not blinding, but alive. It was drawing me, pulling me toward it with a warmth I can't describe. I didn't know it yet, but in minutes, I'd be standing face to face with Jesus himself, and he was about to show me what's coming in 2026. The moment my heart gave out, I knew exactly what was happening. I had seen it in hundreds of patients. I had been the one barking orders over their bodies while their souls slipped away. But this time, I was the patient. It started with a deafening silence. Not the kind you get in a quiet room. This was total. Like the world had been switched off. The voices, the alarms, the rush of footsteps, gone. Yet I could still see them. I hovered above my own body, a vantage point that made no sense but felt completely natural. My colleagues were working frantically. I saw the deep crease between Lisa's eyebrows. I'd teased her about that frown before, never imagining I'd see it while she pounded on my chest. The resident's hands trembled as he peeled the defibrillator pads from their wrapper, his lips pressed tight like he was praying without sound. And there I was, on the table, my mouth slightly open, my skin already losing its warmth. My head lolled to the side in a way I'd seen so many times before in others, that lifeless, heavy surrender of muscle and will. For the first time, I understood what it meant to be gone. The room itself was painfully bright, the surgical lights bleaching every face, every instrument. Even from above, I could smell the sharp antiseptic mixed with something metallic, the faint tang of blood. I noticed details I'd never registered in life. The scuff marks on the floor near the crash cart, the small smudge of ink on a nurse's glove, the tiny wisp of hair that had fallen loose from the scrub cap of the intern at my feet. And yet, I felt no fear. The panic I expected never came. Instead, there was a strange, profound calm. It was as if some deep part of me whispered, "You can let go now." That whisper became a pull, not physical, more like gravity for the soul. The walls of the trauma bay seemed to grow thin, almost translucent. Beyond them, something shone. At first, it was like sunlight through clouds, but the longer I looked, the more it took shape. A light that wasn't just bright, but alive. It had depth, warmth, layers, gold that breathed, blue that hummed, a green so pure it made me ache. I glanced back at the scene below. Lisa's hairline was damp with sweat. Someone shouted, "Charge to 200." My chest jerked under the shock, but I felt nothing. It was like watching a movie of my own death. And then, in the middle of all that chaos, I heard something else. A hum. Faint at first, so soft I thought it was my imagination. But it grew, resonating through me as if every part of who I was recognized it. That hum came from the light. I didn't walk toward it. I didn't float. I was drawn. The pull from that light grew stronger, and with each passing moment, the hospital scene below became less solid, like I was fading out of one reality and being absorbed into another. The voices around my body blurred into muffled echoes, Lisa's urgent commands, the thud of compressions, the electronic beeps, all of it stretched and warped, like I was underwater. And yet, from somewhere far away, I began to hear other voices. They weren't from the trauma bay. They were from outside, or maybe above. One was trembling, raw with emotion. My wife. She was on the phone with the nurse, her voice cracking. "Please, tell me he's okay." The sound of her love hit me harder than the heart attack. Then another voice, Jacob's, praying in the awkward, stumbling way of a 13-year-old, "God, please don't take my dad." And then Emily, whispering through sobs, "We still need you, Daddy." The light pulsed warmer at their words, like it was acknowledging them. I turned fully toward it, and that's when everything shifted. The hospital walls dissolved completely, replaced by what I can only call a living tunnel. It wasn't solid, more like a corridor made of flowing currents of light, rippling and bending like molten glass. It surrounded me, yet I could see through it to streaks of color beyond, hues so pure I knew they didn't exist on Earth. The hum I'd heard earlier was louder now, layered with harmonies, like a choir singing without words. It wasn't just sound, it was meaning. I could feel it telling me, "You are safe. Keep coming." As I moved, or was carried, down that tunnel, I became aware of other presences, shapes gliding alongside me, each radiating familiarity. I couldn't see faces clearly, but I knew in my spirit these were souls who had gone before me. Some felt like family I'd lost long ago. One presence brushed close, and I caught a scent like spring rain, the scent of homecoming. But along the edges of the tunnel, I noticed something else. Shadows. They weren't attacking or pulling me back, but they were watching. They shimmered like smoke, forming fleeting images, scenes from my life. There I was at my desk, ignoring a family dinner to answer patient emails. There I was scrolling news on my phone while Jacob tried to show me his Lego creation. There I was promising Emily we'd go fishing next weekend, a weekend that never came. Each shadow burned with the weight of missed moments. The light ahead seemed to answer my shame without words. Keep coming. The closer I got, the more overwhelming the beauty became. The air, if you could call it that, tasted sweet, like honey and fresh bread. The ground beneath me was soft and glowing, woven from threads of living light. Every part of me was drinking it in, as if I'd been starving without even knowing it. And then, the tunnel opened. I stepped, if you can step without feet, into a vast expanse. A sky that wasn't just above me, but all around. Colors I had no names for swirled and pulsed with life. A breeze carried music and something like laughter. And in the distance, walking toward me, was a figure. I didn't need to see his face to know. My soul recognized him instantly. It was Jesus, the same Jesus I had brushed off for years, dismissed as a comforting myth. Now, here he was, real, solid, radiant. Every step he took toward me filled me with a love so pure I thought it might shatter me. His eyes, even from afar, saw everything about me at once, yet held no condemnation. I froze, because in my spirit I already knew. He was about to show me something about the year 2026, and it would change everything. The moment Jesus came close enough for me to truly see his face, I forgot how to exist. It wasn't just beauty. It was truth. Every question I'd ever had, every ache I'd ever carried, every doubt I'd ever fed, they all collapsed in on themselves under the weight of his presence. He wore a simple robe, white but not like any white I'd known. It shimmered with life, as though woven from light itself. His hair fell to his shoulders, not perfectly styled, but soft and moving as if a gentle breeze followed him everywhere. His eyes, if I spoke about them for the rest of my life, I could never do them justice. They were oceans of knowing, fire, and tenderness all at once. When he reached me, he didn't speak right away. He just looked into me, and in that gaze, I saw every moment of my life flash, not as punishment, but as reality. Every word, every thought, every hidden motive. There was no hiding, yet there was no rejection either. Finally, he smiled. "Matthew," he said, and hearing my name in his voice was like being called home after a lifetime away. "You have been busy with many things, but not the one thing needed." I wanted to look away, but his hand gently touched my shoulder, steadying me. That touch, it wasn't like skin on skin. It was like light and love entered me in waves, filling places I hadn't known were empty. "I'm sorry," I blurted out without thinking. "I should have—" He shook his head gently. "You are here now, and you will see." Without another word, he turned, and I followed him across what felt like a meadow made of light. As we walked, I noticed that we weren't limited by distance. In a single step, we could be anywhere. The landscape shifted with thought, and soon we were standing before what looked like a great, transparent wall of living water. Scenes swirled within it like clouds in a storm. "This is what you must understand," he said softly, gesturing toward the wall. The water parted, and I saw the earth. Not as a globe from space, but as a living thing. Cities, mountains, rivers, all breathing in rhythm. Yet over certain places, I saw shadows gathering. They weren't mere darkness. They moved with intent, like armies positioning for battle. My heart clenched. "What is that?" "These," Jesus said, "are the choices of men multiplied into nations. And in the year you call 2026, some choices will reach their fullness." The scene zoomed closer until I could see one of the cities, a skyline I recognized instantly, Chicago, my home. But it wasn't the Chicago I knew. The air shimmered with tension. People moved quickly, eyes darting, as if danger lurked in every shadow. Above the streets, I saw streams of light and darkness weaving through the air, the invisible flow of thoughts, fears, and influences. Then, without warning, the city was shaken, not by earthquake or storm, but by something deeper. The very systems holding it together began to crumble. Jesus spoke, and his voice carried both sadness and firmness. When truth is traded for convenience, the foundations crack, and when the cracks go unheeded, collapse comes swiftly. I felt his words sink into me. "This will happen?" I asked. "It has already begun," he replied. The water shifted again, showing another place. Not in America this time, but a city with ancient stone walls and narrow streets filled with market stalls. I could smell spices in the air, hear merchants calling. Yet above it, the same shadow army gathered, whispering into hearts. I saw leaders making secret pacts, their lips smiling but their eyes cold. Jesus turned to me. "This year will bring alignments unseen by the world but known by my Father. Many will think it is progress. They will not see the trap until it closes." My mind raced. Can it be stopped? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped closer, his eyes locking with mine. "Do you see?" And when he asked that, it wasn't about my eyes. It was about my soul. I felt something inside me open, and in that moment I understood. These visions weren't just warnings for nations. They were warnings for hearts. The wall of water began to swirl again, images shifting so quickly I could barely process them. Protests in the streets, families splitting apart over lies they believed, churches closing while entertainment halls thrived, and a strange, eerie quiet settling over certain cities, as if the air itself was holding its breath. I turned to Jesus, desperate. "What am I supposed to do with this? I'm just a doctor." He smiled again, but this time it carried a weight. When a doctor sees an infection, he warns the patient, prescribes the cure, and refuses to look away until healing comes. You are seeing the sickness now. Will you warn them? His question hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Before I could answer, the water behind him flared with light, and a new vision began. One that would shake me more than anything so far. The wall of living water brightened until the light felt like warm rain on my face. Then it cleared, and I was standing with Jesus in what looked like a vast gallery. It stretched beyond sight, arches of crystal and gold, floors like polished onyx reflecting our steps. The air carried a scent I can only call new, like the moment after a storm when the world resets. "Matthew," Jesus said softly, "this is the hall of time. I'm going to show you threads the world is weaving for 2026. His voice filled me. I nodded, trembling. The first arch opened. We were inside a hospital that wasn't mine but could have been. White walls, blue scrubs, screens everywhere, but the hum was different, colder. I watched a young doctor hesitate at a bedside, eyes flicking to a tablet where an algorithm flashed red and green bars. The patient, a gray-haired woman, reached for his hand. He pulled back, glancing at the screen, then signed a form with a shaky stylus. Jesus looked at me. 3 pressures will choke compassion if they are not resisted in 2026, speed over presence, policy over conscience, and profit over people. As he spoke, I felt each word land like rings rippling across water. Speed over presence. I saw nurses sprinting past family members who just needed 1 minute of human eyes. Policy over conscience. I saw staff biting their tongues when protocols contradicted common sense. Profit over people. I saw administrators smiling as new efficiencies erased the face from medicine. Jesus showed me. The numbers. Averages, ratios, timing charts, 861 clicks per shift, 12 minutes of eye contact per patient, 0 prayers offered when families asked for hope because that isn't our lane. I winced. I had been part of that. "Do you see?" he asked. I swallowed. "I do." The arch faded and another opened. A living room. Not dramatic, just ordinary. A couch, a coffee table, a family of 4, but every screen glowed like a small blue moon. The father scrolled news with a clenched jaw. The mother watched reels, thumb flicking every 2 seconds. The son gamed, headset on, pulse racing. The daughter filmed herself, forcing a smile that never reached her eyes. The room smelled like microwave dinners and something else, like dust on a warm TV, a plastic heat that isn't quite a smell, but you feel it in your throat. Jesus showed me 5 channels where shadows traveled. Fear in news, vanity in filters, rage in comments, envy in lifestyles, numbness in endless scroll. As each channel pulsed, thin threads flicked out from the screens and wrapped gently around wrists and eyes. They didn't yank, they just held. The family didn't notice. They were too entertained to feel the weight. Addictions do not begin with chains, Jesus said. They begin with cushions. His eyes pierced me with kindness that hurt. In 2026, many will not be dragged into darkness. They will recline into it. The scene zoomed into the daughter's phone. I heard a whisper that wasn't a voice. Compare, compete, perform. The room dimmed just a notch, then another. The father shouted at a headline he could not change. The son snapped at his mother for asking a question during a match. The mother scrolled past a recipe, a wedding, a vacation, a body. Her shoulders drooped. The daughter deleted a video, then filmed it again. Face tighter, smile brighter, eyes emptier. Jesus showed me numbers again. 8, 4, and 22 hours that would be spent by this single family on screens in 2026 if nothing changed. An entire year of life swallowed by blue light. My mouth went dry. "Lord, how do we break it?" "By replacing, not just removing," he said. Silence for an hour a day. Scripture out loud for 10 minutes. 1 shared meal without devices. A fast every 7th day. Small hinges swing great doors. The third arch opened like a sunrise. A church. Wooden pews, dust and sunbeams. Not crowded. A handful of faithful, heads bowed. The air smelled like old books and candle wax, even though I didn't see candles. An elderly woman prayed softly. Each whispered name drifted upward like gold thread. Jesus showed me the prayers as light. For children, for prodigals, for cities. Some threads hit ceilings of iron and sparked. Others passed through like arrows and exploded into gentle rain over houses I recognized from the street. He smiled. In 2026, there will be many quiet revivals, kitchens, garages, park benches. Not all fires are on stages. On the side wall, a calendar appeared with certain dates glowing, 40-day spans highlighted in amber. Fasting, he said, and the word rang like a bell in my bones. I call my people to 3 patterns this year. Humble fasts that break pride, hidden fasts that break performance, and united fasts that break strongholds. Not to earn my love, but to agree with it. Do you see? I do. My voice cracked. I had dismissed all of this as religion. Now it looked like oxygen. The fourth arch swung open and the floor beneath us became a map. Continents breathing slowly. Cities pulsed with light or flickered with shadows. Jesus showed me alignments forming like weather fronts. Agreements inked in rooms without windows. Data traded for influence. Influence traded for silence. Silence traded for souls. I heard signatures scratch, and the paper sounded like a snake shedding skin. He laid a hand on my shoulder, and the love in that touch nearly broke me. "Fear is not your portion," he said, "but clarity is." Scenes flashed rapid fire, supply trucks idling in long lines. A quiet change to a policy page everyone clicked "accept" on without reading. A classroom slide with words that felt off by 1 degree. A late-night vote recorded by 6 people in a room built for 600. None of it looked cinematic. All of it felt consequential. "Lord, what do your people do?" I asked. "4 simple lamps," he said, lifting his fingers. "Truth in the mouth, hospitality at the table, integrity in the open, intercession in the night." As he spoke, homes appeared like lighthouses. Some were grand, most were tiny. Each threw a soft circle of safety into the street. People stepped into those circles and exhaled like they had been holding their breath for years. The 5th arch opened and I heard water, the roar of an ocean. We stood on a shore at night, waves folding and unfolding in slow motion. Out at sea, lanterns bobbed, boats. Some moved towards shore, others drifted away. A storm gathered on the horizon, lightning veining through clouds like a living skeleton. Jesus showed me that the boats were hearts. The storm was confusion. The shore was the Father's house. Some boats had sails of worship, and even with torn rigging, they cut through the waves straight home. Others had motors of willpower, revving hard, spinning in place, going nowhere. A few had dropped anchor on philosophies that looked like rock but were just painted foam, and the anchor slid without grip. He turned to me again. "In 2026, winds will increase. Sails will matter more than engines. Do you see?" I nodded, tears burning. "I see." He pointed to 3 boats. One belonged to a teenager with a soft, stubborn face. One to a weary single mom. One to a man with a successful smile and a secretary behind it. As each boat lifted its sail, sometimes with shaking hands, the same wind that had threatened them filled their canvas and propelled them home. "Faith is not denial," Jesus said. "Faith is agreement with my reality." The gallery dimmed, the arches closed, their edges still glowing like embers. I stood there, undone. Jesus showed me too much and not enough. My heart pounded with urgency, but also with hope. He stepped closer, so close I could feel his breath like spring. "Matthew," he said, voice low and warm, "there is one more thing you must see. It is the most difficult." He glanced toward a final arch I hadn't noticed, a narrow doorway veiled in light the color of dawn. I swallowed. "What is it?" He held my gaze. "It is the personal peace, your peace. And if you will receive it, it will change how you live every hour you have left." I paused, tears in my eyes. "I'm ready." The veil began to lift, the light sharpened. What waited there would cut to the bone and decide whether I could carry these 2026 warnings back to Earth without breaking. The veil rose, and I found myself standing inside a room that made my stomach twist. It was my kitchen. Same cracked tile by the sink, same sticky note on the fridge, "Pick up milk." Same fruit bowl with 2 bruised apples and a banana going brown at the tips. The room smelled like coffee gone cold and the cinnamon my wife liked to sprinkle on toast. Morning light lay in a square on the table. "Why here?" I whispered. Jesus' voice was close and kind. "Because nations begin at tables, and 2026 begins here." The scene shifted, like time sliding forward by a few hours. The kitchen filled with the ghost of my routine. Me, the earthly me, walked in, dropped keys, checked my phone, scrolled while standing. My wife tried to hand me a plate. I nodded without seeing it. Jacob asked if I'd read his essay. I said, "Later." Emily paused by the door, waiting for eye contact that didn't come. My thumb kept moving. My eyes kept dim. Jesus showed me the number above my head. 19,140 ignored moments in the last 5 years. Not days, not hours, moments. 15 seconds here, 40 there, 3 minutes of pretending to listen multiplied by countless mornings. The number pulsed like a heartbeat. I crumpled. "Lord, I didn't mean to." He lifted me with his gaze alone. "Regret is a teacher. Shame is a jailer. I am not a jailer." His hand touched the table, and warmth ran through the wood like sap in spring. "Matthew, what you ignored I can restore, but you must agree with me." The kitchen dissolved into another room, a small call room at the hospital. Harsh fluorescent light, a sagging chair, an empty coffee cup with a lipstick print from some nurse who had borrowed it months ago. It smelled like tired fabric and disinfectant. On the wall, a screen lit up with my life, compressed into 10 minutes that felt like 10 years. I watched my earliest surgeries, the thrill in my chest when a patient lived, the silent relief when one didn't. I watched myself promise one more shift and then just one more. I watched small compromises pile up like snow on a roof that eventually caves. Then the images slowed. 6 faces lingered. 6 patients from 2024 and 2025 whose names I still knew by heart. One was a little boy with a skateboard sticker on his IV pole. One was a grandmother who crocheted during chemo. One was a middle-aged mechanic with grease under his nails and a laugh that filled a room. I watched myself treat them all with skill and a shrinking slice of presence. Jesus showed me how presence itself heals, how 90 seconds of undivided attention lowers fear, how a hand on a shoulder slows breathing, how a prayer at a bedside can shift a storm no medicine reaches. Numbers rose like fireflies. 90 seconds, 3 breaths, 1 prayer. Tiny, atomic, eternal. Lord, I said, voice breaking, I've wasted so much. He looked into me, and I can redeem much more. In 2026, I am calling healers back to healing, the kind that sees souls. The room faded. We stood again in the hall of time, only it felt closer now, like it had moved inside my chest. The final arch opened, not to a place, but to a day. A date hovered before us, September 26th, 2026. The numbers weren't scary. They were bright, like warning lights on a runway, not to frighten, but to guide. Jesus showed me 3 scenes braided through that day like cords twined together. First, a sudden shaking in hearts more than in buildings. Words that used to feel safe, normal, secure, inevitable, would wobble. Not everywhere, not the same way. But across cities and towns, the illusion of control would thin, like ice in late winter. Some would panic. Some would pray. The difference would be what they had practiced in the quiet months before. Second, hidden things would surface. Headlines would say expose, but this was deeper. Computers disgorged emails and alliances. Whispers printed themselves in daylight. People you couldn't imagine telling the truth would confess because the weight of hiding would become heavier than the cost of honesty. Tears would fall in newsrooms and kitchens. Forgiveness would become warfare and medicine at once. Third, small homes would glow. Jesus showed me porches with simple bulbs, kitchens with steaming soup, living rooms with worn Bibles open. These were not safe houses. They were lighthouses. Strangers would knock. Neighbors would wander in. Songs would rise while news scrolled silent on muted screens. 1,000 tiny altars across the land. Why that day? I asked. He didn't give me a chart. He gave me a charge. Because I love them. And warning is love. But the exact day is not your message. Your message is readiness with joy. He extended his hand, and a small object appeared in his palm, a key. It was simple, hammered, old. I recognized the etching on the shaft, my last name, Hale, carved in steady strokes. This is not a key to power, he said. It is a key to doors you already have. What doors? I whispered. Your mouth, your table, your calendar, your phone. He placed the key in my hand. It felt warm, like it had been sitting in sunlight. 4 locks, Matthew. Open them in 2026. He spoke each one slowly, as if engraving them into me, truth in the mouth. Say what is real with gentleness. Refuse spin. Refuse flattery. Refuse cowardice. I will be with you in the pauses. Hospitality at the table. Feed 3 people who cannot repay you every month, and feed your own family with presence every day. Integrity in the open. Do in daylight what you decided in prayer. Sign nothing that injures conscience. Read everything you agree to. Teach your children to do the same. Intercession in the night. Set 1 watch each week, 60 minutes without a phone. Open the Psalms. Walk your house. Bless by name. You will feel foolish. Heaven will not. Jesus showed me my home as if responding to those 4 keys. Laughter returning at dinner. Jacob's shoulders lowering as he talked without competing with my screen. Emily's eyes lighting when I listened as if her words were gold. My wife's hand slipping into mine during a psalm like we were 20 again. It looked so normal I wanted to fall to the floor from the beauty of it. But what about the big things? I asked. Politics, war, systems, the storms you showed me. He smiled, and in that smile I saw oceans. Lighthouses do not calm the sea. They guide ships. Be a lighthouse. The hall of time began to dim, as if the sun were setting in a country where there is no sun. The scents of honey, clean rain, and something like blooming trees faded into a gentler sweetness. A sound rose. The hum I'd heard in the tunnel, now braided with a choir, thousands of voices and one voice at once. Jesus showed me one last thing. An ocean of faces, countless, every color, every age. Some were already bright with light. Some were faint outlines, like they could still change. I recognized a few. The skateboard boy's mother, the mechanic's wife, a nurse who never stopped praying for her patients. They were all turning towards the same person. His eyes met mine. Time folded into a single breath. "Matthew," he said, softer than a whisper and stronger than thunder, "I am sending you back, not to spread fear, to spread readiness with joy. Tell them, I am not coming to steal hope. I am coming to fulfill it. Tell them, 2026 will shake, but those who build on me will sing under shaking. Tell them, I love them." I clutched the key. It glowed in my palm. "Will I remember?" I asked, desperate. "You will remember enough," he said. "And when you speak, I will breathe." The meadow of light returned, the living grass underfoot, the colors that don't exist on earth, the breeze that felt like laughter. He stepped close, and his arms went around me. The hug was home. It poured through me like warm oil, filling cracks I didn't know were there. Every wound, pride, hurry, hardness softened under that embrace. I paused, tears in my eyes. "I don't want to leave you," I said. He held me a moment longer. "I am with you always." Then the light intensified, and the softness pressed me gently backward. The hum deepened, turned into a river that carried me. The gallery receded, the arches closed, the tunnel formed again like currents of glass. Prayers brushed past like feathers. Shadows tried to whisper, but they had no hooks left to catch me. Faster, closer, heavier, the sweetness thinned into antiseptic and plastic and the dry taste of oxygen. I heard my name shouted from very far away and very close. "Clear!" A thunderclap in my chest. Blackness rippled like a curtain. The world slammed back. Everything changed forever. The first thing I felt was weight. Heavy, crushing, suffocating weight. It was my body. Back in it. The second thing was pain. A deep ache in my chest like someone had swung a sledgehammer into me. My throat burned. My tongue felt like sandpaper. My ears rang with the chaotic sounds of the trauma bay again. The steady beeping of the heart monitor, the hiss of oxygen, hurried voices layered over one another. I blinked. The light stabbed my eyes. Faces leaned over me. Lisa's tear-streaked face, the resident's wide-eyed relief. I heard someone say, "We've got him back." Another voice added, 8 minutes? He was gone for 8 minutes. 8 minutes. On Earth. A lifetime in the place I had just been. I tried to speak, but my lips were cracked and dry. The only thing that came out was a rasp. Water. Lisa held a straw to my mouth, and I sipped, but the taste was strange after heaven, like drinking through a layer of dust. Then I heard a sob. I turned my head, every muscle protesting, and there was my wife. Her hands covered her mouth, tears streaming freely. Jacob clung to her side, his face buried in her jacket. Emily stood stiff, eyes locked on mine like she was afraid I'd vanish again. I reached for them. The IV line tugged, but I didn't care. My wife took my hand, and I could feel her shaking. "You came back?" she whispered. I nodded. Words weren't ready yet. The hospital stay was short, too short for what had happened. "You're lucky," one cardiologist said. "Lucky there's no brain damage." Another called it unexplainable that I could be sitting up the next day, but I knew. It wasn't luck. It was love. And I'd been sent back with something I couldn't keep to myself. The first change happened before I even left the hospital. I asked for my phone, but not to scroll, not to answer emails. I handed it to my wife and said, "Delete the apps. All of them. I don't need them anymore." She blinked, confused, but did it. The second change came the night I got home. I asked my family to sit at the table with no devices, no TV, just us. We ate spaghetti, and I told them I loved them more than I'd ever said in years. It felt awkward, like wearing new shoes, but in the best way. I began living by the 4 keys Jesus had placed in my hand. Truth in the mouth, I stopped sugarcoating hard conversations. When a colleague suggested a shortcut that bent hospital rules, I refused. When a patient's family asked me for honest odds, I gave them truth wrapped in compassion. I started speaking scripture out loud in quiet moments, not to perform, but to anchor myself. Hospitality at the table. We invited neighbors over for dinner, even the ones we barely knew. Once a month, I asked my kids to pick someone we could bless, a lonely widow down the street, a struggling single dad, a friend who'd lost his job. The table became an altar. Integrity in the open. I read every form before signing. I asked more questions in meetings. I refused to hide my faith at work, but I also refused to wield it like a club. My actions had to match my prayers. Intercession in the night. Once a week, I walked the house after everyone was asleep, praying by name for each person in it. I opened Psalms and read them aloud, sometimes barely whispering. I prayed for our city, our hospital, our church. At first, it felt small. Later, it felt like breathing. But not everyone understood. Some coworkers whispered that I'd gone religious. Friends joked about my 8-minute hallucination. I didn't argue. I just kept living the way he had told me to. One evening, Jacob came into the kitchen and said, "Dad, you're different now. I like it." Emily started talking to me more, not in passing, but real conversations. My wife smiled more, laughed more. The air in our home changed, and outside the home, I began sharing my NDE testimony, first at church, then at a community meeting, then on a small podcast. Each time I told it, I realized something. This wasn't just about me. The visions Jesus showed me for 2026 weren't mine to hoard. They were warnings and promises for anyone willing to listen. I started telling people about the September 26, 2026 date, but not like a doomsday prediction. I told them what Jesus told me. The day is not your message. Your message is readiness with joy. I explained the visions, how shadows gather when truth is traded for convenience, how families drift into chains made of comfort and screens, how lighthouses guide ships, even in storms they can't calm. I told them the 4 keys, exactly as he had given them to me, and I watched something happen. Not fear, but focus. People began making small changes, 1 screen-free meal a day, 1 honest prayer a week, 1 fast a month, little lamps flickering on. In the months that followed, I saw quiet miracles. A nurse I worked with gave her life to Jesus after hearing the part about the Hall of Time. A patient's son asked me about prayer in the ICU waiting room, and I prayed with him right there. A neighbor who hadn't spoken to me in years stopped by to say he'd started reading the Psalms with his kids. Now, as I tell you this, I can still feel the warmth of that key in my hand. I can still hear his voice. Tell them, 2026 will shake, but those who build on me will sing under shaking. So here's my question to you, the same one he asked me. Do you see? Do you see the cracks forming, the shadows creeping, the distractions tightening around wrists and eyes? Do you see the lighthouses waiting to be lit? I came back from the afterlife with this urgency burning in me, not to make you afraid, but to wake you up. Jesus is not coming to steal hope. He is coming to fulfill it. And if you're his, you have nothing to fear. If you don't know him yet, you can, right now. You don't need perfect words. Just talk to him like he's in the room. Because he is. Ask him to forgive you. Tell him you believe he died and rose for you. Give him your heart. And if you do know see him, be a lighthouse. Speak truth. Open your table. Live in integrity. Pray in the night. Because I promise you, when 2026 comes, you'll want to be singing under the shaking, not scrambling in the dark. I pause, tears in my eyes, and I'll end the way I began. It is appointed unto man once to die, but after this, the judgment. I died. I met Jesus, and he sent me back to tell you, be ready, and be ready with joy.